Oh, what are those? What's that for? Well, that's what God uses to make babies. It takes an egg from a mom and a sperm, right? And so just I'm inviting you answer their questions. And you don't have to say everything. You don't have to give an hour-long lecture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can, but meet their curiosity because if they don't come to you, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And curiosity is, again, another natural part of sexuality. You were
Yeah.
made to be curious about your body, sexuality, other people's bodies. Curiosity is not lust, it is not dangerous.
I won't lose hope in the night when the fire is growing dim. I'll just let go and I'll try. Help me walk this road and find my way back home. Find my way back home. Find my way home.
Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. We are back for part 2 with my friend Sam Jolman on talking about the topic of sex as we continue season 5 on relational intelligence and hitting hot topics this summer that really speak to what it means to be relationally intelligent and how to navigate relationships well. And we talked last week about sex and marriage. This week, we wanted to have him back. He's written a book called The Sex Talk You Never Got. And especially those of us who are raising kids, middle schoolers, teenagers, how do we have these conversations with our kids in a way that we never got, right? And so I would invite you to go back, maybe listen to even some of the beginning of last week's episode or listen to the entire episode where he lays out this foundation. But we're going to talk a little bit about that today because I would love, Sam, for you to be able to lay that foundation of how we spiritually, scripturally lay a foundation for this in a way that's pure, the sense of purity to our kids. And so, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Joshua. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, Sam, just real quickly, for those who might not have listened, they're coming for this topic particularly. Would you just introduce your family to us? And because you're in
Yes.
it right now, and so
Yes.
it's perfect for us to be able to have this conversation.
Yeah, I always like to start by saying I'm a lover, as I said last time, to my wife and to Jesus. We've been married 22 years, and yes, this is a very poignant topic for me. I'm a father to three sons, 13, 11, and 8. And then I'm a therapist by day and an author as well, first time author.
Awesome.
So yeah, so this is I'm in the thick of these conversations on a regular basis with my sons. Uh,
Yeah, let's jump
I,
in. I would love to
let's
jump
do
in.
it.
Yeah, let's hear it because these are the questions that I have as a dad, and I know many others are asking the same questions as well. You have 3 sons. I have 2 sons. I also have a daughter. The book is geared to men and redeeming healthy male sexuality. We're going to talk a little bit about both, but would love for you
Okay.
to, yeah, just share as you raise your 3 sons, kind of how do we begin to have this conversation? What's the foundation look like?
Yeah, it starts with just honoring it is not one conversation. So the
So good.
pressure's off. You
Yeah.
don't have to stick the landing and nail one talk and that's it. And there's several writers that would say it's really more like 100 1-minute conversations you have over a lifetime, and obviously maybe longer than a
So
minute,
good.
but sometimes only a minute. And I can
Yeah.
remember, when my boys were younger, um, the goal is to track with their curiosity. Um, and in many ways, I would say, just to back up a little bit, the sex talk starts from day one. And again, I'm not saying you're going to overtly talk about sex right away, but when your children are younger, like 0 to 6,
Hmm.
right? How do you set up this conversation well? And it's, I think, all about healthy relationship with your body, being able to bless your children's embodiment. So, that can be teaching them healthy play. Um, what kid doesn't want to disrobe, right? And strip off their clothes in the middle of Target or the house. I can remember my boys at bath time, like wiggling away from us and then just doing laps in the house naked, right?
Naked.
Like
Yeah.
that. And being able to bless healthy embodiment, their love of their bodies. Your body is the artwork of God.
Mm.
It is so good. And, being able to use, I would say, the right names for body parts.
Yeah, it's good.
So use penis, vagina, vulva,
Yeah.
testicles, sperm, right? Egg, like use the language, the proper language. Um, I've known men that come to me and say, my parents treated penis like a swear word. We didn't talk
Mm.
about body private parts because, and if we did, we got punished like a swear word. And just the inherent shame that can start the conversation with just in naming body parts. So,
Yeah.
just
Wow.
starting to think about like how you are scripting your child's body to them and how you're answering their curiosity. And I would invite you, much like you talk about fingers and toes and ears and give names to things, you just bless their genitalia by using the proper terms. Um, and again, blessing their body as the artwork of God. Isn't your body so cool? What
Yeah.
it's capable of.
So good. Yeah, no, it's so good. And then how would you then therefore, and that's something that we have done, yeah, using the correct terms and and sharing that. How would you then talk to them? How do you set the stage of this from a scriptural perspective? How do you set the stage from a beauty perspective as it relates to even getting into the word and so not making it so how do I say this? A freeing, refreshing understanding of who they are, created in the image of God, without it getting so boring and theological. And they're like, "Dad," you know what I mean? Like, help
Yeah.
that sense of like, this is who you were created to be, and here's what God says about you.
Yeah. I think, in part honoring like the image of God is not just like our spirit and our soul, but even your body. So being able to hold like you bear the glory of God. Psalm 8, where David says, "What is man that you're mindful of us, the
Man,
Son of Man that you care for us? You made us a little lower than God." So like being able to sit with and that's a translation that if you look in your footnote is there. It's often translated, the angels, but another translation can be you made us a little lower than God. So just understanding that you're scripting to your child, you bear the image of God in your body as well as your soul, as well as your
mm,
spirit. Again, blessing the body is good, not teaching Gnosticism, right? The
yeah,
and I think being able to help your children delineate between, the flesh, sin nature, and the body, and that the body is good and it was made for pleasure, right? And taste buds and um, children relate to their worlds naturally from a very sensual perspective, right? They
yeah.
talk about what things feel like. They talk about what things sound like. They talk about what things taste like. So just helping them and blessing that. Um, I think, beginning to script to your children, why do we cover our bodies?
Hmm.
Right? Of
Yeah,
all,
it's
no
good.
other animal covers their body. Why do we? Um, and I'm convinced, that clothing is not to cover shame as much as it's to veil glory.
Ooh,
So like Moses coming down from from Mount Sinai, right? His face is glowing. And that so much so that the people are like, cover your face. And so he veils his face for them after he's met with God. And it's the tradition we still hold, in weddings. Why do we have a veil? Right? It's this
cover
unveiling,
glory.
right? To cover the glory, right? It's
Oh,
glorious things in
so
the Bible
sweet.
that are covered. You
Yeah.
like, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy of Holies, um, Moses' face, Jesus' body that glows, right? At his transfiguration.
Yeah.
And they fall down and it's this revelation of his his God sense, I guess you could say, right? His godness.
Yeah.
But um, again, just coming to understand, where, and then Paul carries that forward by saying, we all with unveiled faces will reflect the Lord's glory with ever
So
increasing
good.
glory. And that's not just your spirit, it is also your body. So,
Mm-hmm.
we cover glorious things. So mom, dad, why do I have to wear clothes? Because your body is
It's
the
glorious.
artwork of God. It's glorious. And
So good.
we live in a world that can't handle glory well,
Yeah.
naked glory. And so it's to be revealed in only special times or only special places, right? Um, I think that's a better way than scripting shame, right? Because, I think, inadvertently, unfortunately, we can end up making it seem like bodies are bad or body
Yes.
parts are bad
Yeah.
or so um
Which, by the way, is where we end up carrying a lot of shame and into the marriage eventually. And what we want to do is help
right.
our kids go into marriage with a sense of beauty and holiness to what marriage and purity to what sex truly is, to what how their
Yes.
bodies. Yes, like this is we're trying to reverse the curse in many
Yes.
ways as much as we possibly can and protect that sense of holiness and glory that you're talking about. I love that. We're protecting glory and
Yeah.
rather than hiding shame. Man, it is so good. So you're talking about 0 to 6, like using body parts
Yep.
as proper language, teaching them that we're hiding glory. These are glorious things. This is why we want to do this. Our body's glorious. Just the sense of the senses to me, I think is so powerful to what you're sharing. The taste buds, the pleasure centers of our bodies, and being designed for pleasure, I think
Hmm.
is really, really important. And how do we therefore then, because this is where we want to protect pleasure, we want to protect
Yeah.
innocence, right? And
Yeah.
screens are such an issue today as it
Yes.
relates to this.
Yes.
And kids are being exposed to pornography at younger and younger ages. We
Hmm.
even get the sense of, I think, as it relates to the inability to be able to relate in real
Hmm.
time, in real person with real people, because the screens are numbing down the pleasure center of our brains. And so we're numbing pleasure. We're numbing that part, and we need bigger and bigger hits of these other
Hmm.
things, which is obviously where it gets into addiction and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I would love for you to talk a little bit about it in relation to how do you navigate the relationship with your kids as it relates to screens, what they're exposed
Yeah.
to. Do you have them bringing that to you if they see
Yes.
something that's off? Yeah, how are you creating those conversations around those topics?
Yeah. So let me set it up a little bit. The one word I would use set so like age 7 to 12, 0 to 6, embodiment.
Okay.
7 to 12, I would use the word curiosity.
Good. Okay. Yep.
So answering their questions, slake the thirst of their curiosity, right? Because if they don't come to you and get an answer, they might go to Google,
Yeah.
right? To the internet, or to their friends, and their friends are probably going to have an answer from Google or the
Yes.
internet
That's
or
right.
pornography, right? And so, and obviously, I think on the younger side, 7, the questions my boys were asking were things like, Dad, what are these balls under my penis called?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, those are testicles. What do they do?
Mhm.
Right. And again, they didn't ask all these questions in the same conversations. These were like the one
Yeah.
minute
Nuggets. That's
talks,
right. Yep. Yep.
little nuggets. Well, they produce sperm. Oh, what are those? What's that for? Well, that's what God uses to make babies. It takes an egg from a mom and a sperm, right? And so just I'm inviting you answer their questions. And you don't have to say everything. You don't have to give an hour-long lecture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can, but meet their curiosity because if they don't come to you, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And curiosity is, again, another natural part of sexuality. You were
Yeah.
made to be curious about your body, sexuality,
Mhm.
other people's bodies. Curiosity is not lust. It is not dangerous. So for example, I'm on a walk, we're walking our dog, we pass a minivan. Now, this is some of the older conversations. Um, or sorry, we passed a car, and on the car was a sticker that said, "Condoms save minivans." It's funny, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
on a little, like, I don't know, little teeny car.
Yeah.
And my son says, "Dad, what's a condom?"
Yeah.
Right?
Good.
My
Yeah.
11-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Here
We're
we go.
going there. Right.
Yep.
And so I gave him the 1 minute conversation, which is, well, it's like a balloon and it covers a man's penis and it prevents the sperm from being able to reach the egg. And he was good. He was like, oh,
He's good.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But, now he knows.
Yeah.
So if somebody brings up condom, he's not going to be like, oh my gosh, what is that? And,
Yeah.
ask a friend who's going to maybe, or go type it into the computer. Right. So again, meeting curiosity, blessing curiosity. I think somewhere between age 7 and 12 is where you're going to probably introduce the actual,
Yeah. The act
what
of
is sex?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What is actual sex? For our boys, it was younger than I thought it was going to be. At 7 years old, 8 years old,
Wow.
we
It,
we read a little book that explained it.
It's so funny to me. My first conversation with our son, who's now getting ready to turn 13, but he says we were in the sperm and the egg conversation, right? And how a
Yeah.
baby's made. And I explained, the sperm meets the egg, and just as you were explaining earlier, and he's like, well, Dad, how does the sperm get into the egg? Like, how does that happen? And he's
Yeah.
probably about 8 years old at the time, where he's asking this. And it was so funny because I explained it to him. It's the first time I explained, well, the penis goes into the vagina. This is how it happens. And I'm thinking I'm gonna get this, like, wait a minute, you and mom, did that. And so I explain it, and he's laying in bed. This is like a bedtime conversation. So he's laying in bed. I'm tucking him in bed. He's asking this question, and I drop this statement. And I'm waiting for him to come back with, like, wait, so you and mom, and his eyes go up into his head, and you can tell he's thinking, and he goes, and Dad, so like the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark, Noah, that wasn't the same thing, right? Like the Ark of the Covenant wasn't it. And I was just like, he just went on this complete other direction.
Yeah.
It was either he didn't want to know, or he was just clueless. And I think
Yes.
he was clueless, actually. But it just led to more and more comments. But it was so funny. I wrote that one down as like,
That's
this is
awesome.
a memory right here.
That's awesome. And and again, I think that's where we as parents fear, like, but what if they keep asking, and how much do I explain? And just understanding your children's curiosity is like a thirst, and when it's met, right, it might be months, years until they ask more specific questions, probably more months. But again, meeting their curiosity is a form of blessing, and it will keep a relationship of trust, that they know they can come to you and they're going to get a straight answer.
Yeah.
Now there's certainly things I've had to say to my sons, I just need you to trust me. I'll tell you more about that later. Like, one of my sons came home from school, my oldest son, who's 13, and said, Dad, what does 69 mean?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
You're like, okay. But so I answered it. I said, well, there's different positions in which you can have sex.
Yeah.
And I just need you to trust me I'll tell you more about that later. But,
yeah.
Like that. But I gave him enough of an answer, and he was good.
Yep. That's good. And I think too, it's important for us to look at, like, so for example, we homeschool. And so our kids aren't as exposed. They're not coming home from school being exposed to those conversations yet. Right. So like, our kids we're a little bit behind these conversations with my soon to be 13-year-old. And maybe when he's 13, we will have it, but he's just not exposed to that yet. So, you talk about exposure and where your kids might be, you got to go with where they're at. Right. I mean, that's we don't want to introduce more to them than what is necessary for where they're at and their understanding.
Right. And that is a dance. You're exactly right, of kind of reading their friend group, reading their environments. What are they hearing? What are they not hearing?
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing I would want to add to this is you're not just scripting sex, you're also scripting romance. And so, um, my
Good.
sons will
Yes.
even ask questions like, how do you kiss a girl?
Mm,
Or how do you know if you're when you want to marry somebody?
it's good.
Um, So, even those questions are a part of the 1 minute sex talks. Um,
Yeah.
how you express affection to your wife, your partner, how you guys show that you're in love, how you narrate your story to each other.
Mm,
And how you talk about dating and like they're a sponge. And the more you answer for them, again, the more reliable you'll be to them as a source of information,
so good.
which is what you want.
And I think I love the sense of, because it is, and I tend to even find my questions going to, and I'm asking questions based upon things I hear from other parents, things I think about myself, but it's more so how do we protect them from the pain of the culture?
Yeah.
And yet the questions really ought to be more so of how do we introduce them to glory? How do we introduce them to
Yes.
romance? How do we introduce them to play? How do we help them understand? I think this is the whole context. This is the whole context of the book, that Sex Talk You Never Got, is here's the beauty of this thing. Here's what
Yes.
desire looks like. And I'd love
Yes.
for you to speak to that as we switch that conversation over into our relationship with our kids. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to get out of a fear-based approach to the sex talk and more of a value-based
Good.
is what
Yeah.
I would highly, highly encourage. And there's research that Sheila Gregoire has done on, some of the fear-based messaging and how
Mm,
that can set up even sexual dysfunction
mm,
for women later, is particular research she's done. So, trying to get away from if you cast the vision well, the value based, right? Why? Why would God want this? What's a good sexual ethic? Instead of like, man, this is damaging, and we obviously want to prevent harm for our children, but trying to if you don't give them a healthy vision, nothing else will make sense. So,
yes.
you
Yeah.
know, I've talked to my 13-year-old son and 11-year-old son about pornography. And you know, we had a context because of the glory of bodies,
So
right?
good.
And so understanding, like, yeah, there are some people that actually take pictures of themselves or videos of themselves naked and they post that on the internet. And they were
Mm,
like, whoa. And yeah, and what does that say about their value of their body? Right.
right.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
because we've cast sex as this romance and it's you unveil your body to your partner um in love, and right, so now you have a context and a platform to make the world seem like, wow, that is broken, versus titillating, right? When you cast the vision from value, I think you set up the pleasure's here in this vision,
Yeah.
it's not in that.
And that. Yeah.
um
It's so
the
funny.
other thing,
Oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead,
Sorry.
go ahead.
The other day I got a text from my wife. Rarely do they ever like, I can't even tell you the last time I stepped foot in a mall. But she
Yeah.
stopped into a mall for our daughter who's 11, and I get a text. It says Kennedy at the mall. So she's 11. Quote, this is my wife texting me. Quote, do teen girls even know what a shirt is anymore? So it's wild because my daughter's noticing this. She's
Yeah.
noticing other teen girls in a mall not wearing, very revealing, wearing very revealing clothes, which was, I think, good in terms of us casting value. Like, this is
Mhm.
what, modesty looks like. But I love the word glory, and I'm gonna use that because I haven't used that.
Yes. So, I think what you're starting to mark is what I would say, as your children are hitting teen, preteen, I do think there's a transition. The third phase would be the teenage years. I think it's all about dialogue,
Mm,
just like what you're describing your daughter having right now. Their curiosity is leading to dialogue. where you're actually going to start to ask them to express some of their values, right? And like what are helping them start to interpret movies, the mall, you know, being out in public, and um, you know, being again, I think able to honor, you know, curiosity about other people's bodies without shaming that, but
Yes.
then
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
asking them like, hey, what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Um, and along with this, you brought this up earlier, and I wanted to come back to it. You know, we have set for our boys. I always encourage parents to reward disclosure. So if
Good.
your kids come to you and say, "Hey, mom, dad,
Good.
I saw pornography," or um, or a story of sexual harm,
Mhm.
this happened and I felt very uncomfortable. Reward that. Like we take our boys out for ice cream and we celebrate. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. So
Um,
good.
because otherwise, you know, the children just can't consent to looking at pornography. They don't know what's coming. And if you try to punish it as like, I told you not to look at that, right? Like they just don't know what they're, you can tell them, but they just don't fully grasp it. And
Yeah.
so my encouragement is that you um take them out for ice cream, you know, we or something, right? Whatever that you're celebrating. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
talk them through it. You know, and again, if there's something that you need to boundary for them or discipline, I understand that part. But gosh, you know, the things that my boys will tell us now from their experience at school or a show, right?
So good.
That
Yep.
we thought was innocent, and you know, in the end,
Something pops up.
oh,
Yep.
right. And you know, that's sure to come. So
Yeah.
being able to have dialogue
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
keep the channels of dialogue open is essential.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm going to go back to even the statement you said, the statement that I made about our daughter, and then even the statement, because this is even part of our dialogue is right, like the way that she says the statement, and then just also going, okay, the judgment, right? To not judge that, but to go, okay, so
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me what you
Yeah.
think about that. And because we want to be able to enter in with compassion into other people's stories as well, to go, hey, this is part of the world, this is part of what they're learning,
Right.
and how do we enter into compassion there rather than having a sense of judgment on that, on or on those
Right.
people, on the souls of those people, but being able to, and now obviously there has to be a level of judgment in relationship to who our kids are spending time with and hanging out
Uh-huh.
with
Right.
versus who can they, how can they influence, right?
Yes.
And learn from the culture, learn from what others, what they're seeing, to best glorify God with their own lives, their own bodies, their own stories, and write a great story that other people want to be a part of, that other people look at and go, wow, man, what is it about you? What is it about your story? What is it about this that you walk in? And because it's such a witness then
Yes.
in terms of our relationship with Jesus and how we view our lives.
Right. Yes, that's beautiful. Yes, to invite like what do you think it says about how they value their body?
Yeah.
Right? Or what
Yeah.
do you think of that choice? Right. Inviting it to the empathy of somebody's what they're going through.
Yeah.
Or um so that they can start to again what you're building is a value-based sexuality in my
Yeah.
belief. You're
Yeah.
helping
Yeah.
them start to build a sexual ethic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so being able to discern like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying, or
And a relational one, because you even think about shows. I think about, one of the shows our daughter watches is When Calls the Heart, right? And there's romance in there, there's,
yes.
story in there. And even whether it's a movie or whatever, one of the dialogues that we're having with our kids is, well, what did you think about that situation? And how do you think it made that person feel? And right? So now all of a sudden you're starting to get this sense of what does dating look like? And like you were talking earlier, the kiss, and how do what does it mean?
Yes.
How do you kiss a girl? And it's like, wait a minute, those two kissed, but should have they? And all of
Yeah.
those conversations, I think, just create such healthy, helpful conversation for what is going on underneath what's going on in their feelings as
Hmm.
it relates to now living this out, and how do we protect that glory? Man, that the way, and I love that. This is what I love about what you write and what you do is this, the sex talk you never got is it comes back to the beauty and the glory of God and how he
Yeah.
created us to be.
Yes. Right. That sex is God's, right?
Yeah.
It's not the culture's. And
Yeah.
so, being able to blast pleasure and arousal and and there's been times even with my boys, when they, we see something and there's a beautiful woman on a commercial or, dancing in a commercial or something, being able to say like, yeah, they're beautiful, aren't they?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like that's okay to bless that they're responding to the beauty of a woman, that's not inherently bad in them.
And can you speak to that desire versus lust?
Yes. Yeah. So, arousal and desire are different things in the body. Arousal is a body's response to sexual stimuli, visual stimuli, relational stimuli, right? Arousal in the body is just a response to something sexual is relevant and happening around me,
Yeah.
right? So that could be you see a beautiful person. Um, that body response is not the same as lust. Lust happens in the heart. Desire happens in the heart. So what am I going to do with my body response? Um, the Bible Project guys, uh, I love their interpretation, Tim Mackey's interpretation of, Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount. If any man looks at a woman lustfully, he's guilty of adultery. He says, probably a good interpretation there would be any man who goes on looking at a woman for the purpose of lust, meaning
Mm.
there's a participation in actively continuing to look for lust. So it's not just noticing a beautiful woman and feeling it in your body. That actually can be turned into, I believe, into just an appreciation for beauty, right?
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
would notice
Yeah.
a beautiful sunset or
Yeah.
to say, wow, that's a beautiful person.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful woman and being able to move on.
Yeah.
That's arousal. It's not the same as lust. Now, a lust can happen if you
Yeah.
continue that.
Yeah.
So um that's been, things that I've walked my boys through is making room for it's okay to notice and respond to beauty. It's actually a part of your design.
Yeah.
Um and ultimately there's a place of falling in love with the beauty that the person whose beauty you can celebrate and enjoy the most is your wife's beauty
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's beauty through and through.
And that's where, man, that's where you see Song of Songs being so just a beautiful uh, picture of what it can look like, what it can be
Yes.
in relation to here's where we're building towards, here's what you're building for. And I'd be curious to get, I just think this is, so one of the things that I say often is, people say, well, should we get married young? And I think, you know, getting obviously it's God's story, right? God's going to bring that person into your life at the right time. But I also think there's something to be said for getting married when you have the support around you to do marriage well. And
Mm,
and so yeah, like if God has awakened that within you, then and you find somebody and you have great support around you, there's nothing wrong with getting married young, which
mhm.
is not necessarily. I mean, I was 30 when I got married, so I was a little bit later. I was healing my own journey in many, many ways, or healing my own family story, healing my own story in many ways. But getting married young and even using that, having that as a value, a potential value for your marriage to be building for the kingdom of God, I think is another healthy, helpful value if we are supporting them in that process.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, I I'm trying to cast a vision for my boys too of, if you have a sense of self and you meet somebody who has had time to really know who they are
Yeah.
enough,
Yeah.
right? And what is that line? That is the walk of the spirit, as you're naming, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but like, yes, that coming together of two selves,
Two selves.
um,
That's good. That's right. That's good. Yep.
people who know each other enough, and that includes knowing your story
Yep.
to some degree.
Yep.
And of course, nobody can know themselves fully when they're entering marriage of how marriage grows you up.
Yeah.
But yes, I would agree.
I mean, the thing is I was 30 by the time I got married. Christy was 28. And I look back at our marriage now after 15 years and I'm like, who were we? Like, I don't like, how did we like, I,
Yes.
I don't even look at myself. I'm like, man, I was a mess. I mean, I wasn't, but I was, you know what I mean? You're just like, it's crazy, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's I think it's Dan Allender who says, you choose the person you're going to marry with the same part of your brain that swerves away from a car crash. Meaning there's this kind of instinctive, reactive part of us that's a part of the choice, no matter how deeply you
So
think
wild.
about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Um,
Yep.
and it's meant to reveal you in
Yep.
that knowing sense, right? Like,
Yep.
oh man, I've been I've been exposed.
I've been exposed. Absolutely. Marriage is just beautiful, man. It's the most sanctifying relationship on the planet. And, we've been through our ups and downs. And man, I can honestly say I love my marriage so much and I love my wife so much. But yeah, it's taken work. It's taken a lot. It's been a journey. But at the end of this, our marriage is a reflection of what we want to model for our children. And as you were saying, the values. And I think one of the challenges I've had, even in just talking to you, is doing a better job of even telling more of our story, our love story to our kids.
Yes.
Because, there have been times where even on our anniversary, which is coming up, where we have shared, even some video from our wedding and things like that. But that's been many, many years ago. And I feel like,
Mm,
one challenge I have coming out of this is going, man, I want to share more of our love story with our kids. I want
hmm
them to see what that looks like and cast
mm,
more of that vision to them so that it goes hand in hand with the glory
mhm.
component of what you're talking about in relation to
Yes.
sexuality.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you
that's
for that.
so good. Yeah, and I think as your children get older into older teenage years, dialogue, I encourage the dialogue to include, again, appropriate at some level, meaning you're not processing your story with your kids,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But that you
Yeah.
you share mistakes you've made.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I dated this person and it didn't go well, or you know, this is why I got a divorce from my first partner. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's not my story, but
Yeah. Yeah.
let's say you
Right.
have divorce in your story,
Right.
right? Like being able to just tell enough of the story for them to know, um, gosh, we're all finding our way.
Yeah. It's
And
good.
and God again is slow to anger and rich in love. Um, and so he's in the business of redemption. He's not going to give up on you, no matter where you are in your sexual journey,
Yeah.
um, so that they can see, like, okay, I have a loving God that can hold me up in this.
And I have a loving parent who is saying, hey, come to me when you do struggle, or come to me when you do
Yes,
have something exposed to you, because I'm going to take you for ice cream and we're going to celebrate what you've
yes,
experienced. Like we're going to walk through this together. I think that is I mean, I'm not saying celebrate the sin, but I'm saying if there was
right,
sin or if they were exposed to something, I'm
right,
celebrating your vulnerability and your confession as we walk through this together. Yeah.
yes. Modeling the prodigal son's father, right? Of like, I will embrace you a
Gonna
long way
run to you.
off.
So
Yep.
good. Yeah, that's so good. Sam, thank you for your time once again. Just yeah, having this conversation. I just want to uh, point everybody to the show notes. go get Sam's book, The Sex Talk You Never Got, especially for men, just to redeem your sexuality, redeem the purity, the glory of our bodies, and what that looks like for entering into safely into our marriage, safely having conversations with our kids that are values based rather than fear based. And so, Sam, just want to thank you once again and leave it to you if you have any other thoughts that you want to close with. Any departing thoughts?
Oh, Joshua, this has been incredible. I've loved our conversation. And again, I would want to say, innocence, protecting your children's innocence, innocence is not the same as naivete. So teaching your children healthy sexuality, innocence, in the words of Dan Allender, is the ability to be in awe. And if you teach your children well the vision, right, you're going to keep alive that innocent awe for the goodness of God and the pleasure that God has given us. So, again, you are not going to wound your children by giving them healthy and good information. You're actually going to be supporting that sexual innocence in them.
Man, say that Allender quote again.
Innocence is the ability to be in awe.
Woof. Man,
it's a 1,000-pound sentence.
I love it. Innocence is the ability to be in awe. Because I look at our kids and I see such innocence, and I always say I want to protect it with everything that I have for as long as I possibly can. And it's not necessarily naivety. It is just a sense of the ability to experience awe. Like, I've never heard that. I'm like, I love it. Yeah. So for all of us, man, the ability to experience
words to live by.
Words to live by. Sam, once again, thank you. Check out the show notes for Sam's book. It is an honor to be with you. We will see you next week. And until then, keep in mind that the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.